Okay, hi guys. I'm Ria, compulsive overeater and bulimic. Oh, sorry, people are texting me. It's like a wild morning this morning. It's actually not that wild. It's just lost track of time. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about body image and sexuality, which is a very juicy topic. Um, so before I jump into my thoughts, I'm going to go to the big book, which I always do, because all my thoughts I need the source material before I can share my thoughts, right? So we're going to read what the big book says about sexuality in 1 second. It's on page 69 because those alcoholics are pretty sassy. A big book. Sorry, guys. Thank you for your patience today. All right, here we go. We're going to into action. Or not. I lied. Outward. Okay, so let's go to bottom of page 68 into 69. Here we go. Now about sex. Many of us have needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to get sensible on this question. It is so easy to get way off track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes. Absurd extremes, perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is lust over our lower nature, is a lust over our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that there isn't the right kind, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals, and help us live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done, and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield we mean heartache. Alrighty, so in general, I'd say 99.9% of the time, follow the big book directions verbatim. Sometimes when it comes to subtle things like prayer, I might go and do my own thing a little bit, but for the most part, this is the guidebook for my life, right? So here in this book, they say that we have no opinions on what sex should look like, in what manner it should be done, in what type of relationship it should be done. They have no opinions on that. And I don't either. You can be single, you can be in a couple, you can be in a throuple, you can be gay, straight, trans, bi, married 400 times. I could care less. And quite frankly, it's irrelevant to recovery. The bottom line is that I need to be in a situation, first of all, that feels right and safe to my soul. But I also have to show up in a way that is honest, unselfish, and present. So in order to do that, I have to look back at my old behavior because for me, and I'll get to body image. I guess body image and sexuality are very linked. So I'll discuss my experience and then go from there. So I am a straight woman who, you know, has always had a fascination with men and sexuality, particularly my own effect on men and my power that my sexuality can have over men. It scared me a lot as a kid, and I'm sure that that has something to do with the fact that I put on weight young because I felt that that was a way to keep myself safe. And then once I got thin, I understood that better because when I got thin, I realized that it wasn't them I couldn't trust, it was me. That if somebody threw me a scrap of male attention, or for the sake of male attention, I would go after people who didn't belong to me. I would use sex as a bargaining chip. It was not, the only person I was having a relationship with was myself. And most of us, when we come into recovery, have the same experience. It might look different, but mostly we're just looking for that same feeling of ease and comfort from sex that we were from food. And I used people like they were cigarettes, got what I needed from them and threw them out. So sexuality to me was a means to an end of making myself feel better. In addition, because I grew up in a larger body and was told that that's not attractive, I had a lot of shame attached to my sexuality. Like I didn't deserve to feel desire. I didn't deserve to be desired. People who desired me, there must be something wrong with them. And even, I happen, and this is my 100% personal belief. I am not an expert. I know nothing. This is literally my own experience. Okay. I happen to believe that sexuality is a spectrum and there are people who, fall on one side or the other side or in the middle. So like for me, I'm mostly straight, like mostly straight, but like have some curiosity in another direction because that's what people are like. Right. So for me, like, I never gave myself real permission to experiment with the same sex because I had shame about that as well. Like there was all this shame. I mean, listen, I did my own experimentation, but the point was I never took myself seriously as a person with a healthy sexuality. It was always something that had to be hidden or manipulated for, or, just, I could never just be honest about the fact that I am a human being with natural desires, a desire to connect and a desire to feel pleasure because I'm a human and that's what we are born with and that is 100% okay. I felt I didn't deserve those things, so I had to manipulate and play around in order to, instead of just being direct and asking for what I wanted. And I chose people who didn't respect me because I didn't respect myself. There was one time I was with a former partner and we were together and right afterwards he made a derogatory comment about my body. And, I thought that's the best I could do. So I accepted that. I don't have to do that anymore. But for me, the truth was like, even though it was hurtful to me, I wasn't really having sex with him. I was using him to have sex with myself. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so when I get into recovery, sexuality has to be, first of all, I have to put it in right proportion, right? Like, I think this book was written only for alcoholics, and a lot of alcoholics back then, most of the people they were working with were men, right? So for men, like sexuality may show up in different ways, and a lot of them were dealing with infidelity and all different kinds of things. Thank God in my lifetime, I've been married for 18 years now. I haven't had to deal with that. I was in recovery before I got into this program. It's just not something that was on my plate. For a lot of these people, it was though, because even though they were married, they were, alcoholics and still looking for that sense of connection, understanding, especially if they have wives at home who are fed up with their BS and weren't interested in having sex, which makes perfect sense. So what they're talking about here is to bring our sexuality, like all other aspects of our lives, into balance, right? It says here, we asked God to mold her. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given, right? Like, I know there are a lot of religions. I happen to be Jewish. Jews have no shame around sex. Judaism is like, be fruitful and multiply, literally. Like, go, have fun. I know there are religions in which sex is considered a sin, or, it's base or an animal, instinct. These guys are saying that's not true. That sexuality and a desire to connect that way physically is a God-given gift and therefore good, right? Sex is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. And like I said, have it with whoever you want, as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. So we shouldn't be using it lightly, right? It's not something I should just throw away because I threw it away for a very long time, or selfishly. And I did that even after I was married, right? Like those of us who have been in marriages for a long time may know about, okay, well, I'm really pissed off at him for doing A, B, and C, so I'm not having sex. Like this is, it can be used in that way as well. Or I'm gonna have sex because I know that if he's in a good mood, then blah, blah, blah. This is always I have to be checking my motives in terms of my sexuality. So like everything else in my life, I have to raise my sexuality onto a spiritual plane. It's not just physical. It is a spiritual act. It is an act of giving and connection. And it is an act of taking also. It's like when I work with sponsees. Thank God I'm not having sex with my sponsees, but when I'm sitting there talking and doing spiritual work with them, I'm giving something to them from myself. And at the same time, I'm getting something back. And we're forging this spiritual connection. It's the same thing. I'm very lucky to be in a happy marriage with a man who, after 18 years, still thinks I'm hot and wants to have sex with me. So, and I want to have sex with him. So, being able to allow myself to enjoy that for the right reasons is a beautiful thing. There is nothing to be ashamed of there. It's awesome. It's just a gift from God. I think about that all the time. The truth is, like, if God wanted us to just have sustenance, we could have just like gotten a vitamin or a rock or something, right? God made food. It's freaking delicious. Like, yeah, we all know why we're here. And yes, food can be a problem for us. But if you think about it, just facts on the ground, food is amazing. Like an apple, God didn't have to go so hard on food. You know what I mean? He could have been like, here, eat this dirt at the end. But he was like, no, have apples and oranges and bananas. And, I mean, come on, it's amazing. And in terms of procreation, it could have just been like you shake hands with someone and you're pregnant. God was like, no, here, have the best freaking pleasure and have a baby, which is awesome. I mean, and if you want to like connect with someone, I mean, I have had to really shift my thinking on that instead of it being something furtive and shameful, it's like, whoa, it's a privilege and it's fun and I can enjoy it and be grateful and not feel ashamed walking away. So that's sort of my preface to this whole situation. Okay, so now let's talk about body image. We as women have a really tough deal, right? Because no matter what we look like, we are told by the world that however we look is not good enough. And we have to change something fundamentally about ourselves, whether it's our size, our shape, our hair color, our eye color, our skin tone, our teeth, our this, our that. I was on Instagram the other day and it was like 6:30 in the morning and I got this ad and it was like, if you can't do 50 push-ups, you need to do calisthenics. And I was like, first of all, why are you yelling at me? That's number one. Like, it's 6:30 in the morning. Number two, who's coming to my house to see if I can do 50 push-ups? Like what's going to happen if I can't do 50 push-ups? Does someone die? No one dies. Like, because really what they're doing is, the algorithm's going, she's in her 40s. She's probably premenopausal. She's probably putting on a little weight. We should probably get her in her vulnerable state. Whereas I'm like, I'm not fucking doing 50 push-ups. Get out of here. Like, I'm really busy right now, But we're constantly getting bombarded with messages about who we are and who we're supposed to be, aside from us dealing with our weight stuff with this program. Okay, so I'm just talking about women in general right now. Okay, we do not get a break from the first moment we are born. Okay, first it's what color are you wearing, and don't eat that, and I grew up in a home. My grandmother, her claim to fame was that she was 108 pounds at her wedding. That was like her thing. Like, I was 108 pounds at my wedding, and I've seen pictures of her. She was a fox for sure. But when I knew her, she didn't weigh 108 pounds anymore. But in her kitchen, I still remember this. I'd go to visit her, and in her kitchen, she had this poster. and it's on the top, it said, "Be an angel." And there were these little cherubs like flying around on the top. And then it had a list of foods, like any food you could think of, and its calorie count. So the odds weren't good for me from the get-go, guys. Okay. So my grandmother was obsessed with that, but she was also a compulsive eater and a hoarder. And then my mother grew up, she was 5'8" by the time she was 13. I don't know what that is in centimeters, sorry guys, but she was tall, okay? And they used to call her the Jolly Green Giant. And she was not, she was a woman, she wasn't fat, she was just like solid, broad, sturdy. To her, though, she felt like huge. And so she was always, always, my whole life, talking shit about her body, talking about how she needed to go on a diet, talking about how she had to be smaller, talking about how her sister, who was so petite, she was always compared to her. And so all I heard were these messages about like saying nice things about your body. Never heard that. Being on a diet, that's all I ever heard. And then I grew up in the 90s, okay, when everyone was supposed to look like Kate Moss, where you live on like Marlboros and Diet Coke, okay? So, and I looked nothing like that. And in fact, I think maybe 4 other people on planet Earth looked like that. But that's advertising, right? Like, let's present a problem, which is you, and then give you a goal, which is unattainable, so you'll keep giving us money. So God bless them, it works. I for sure gave them that. Well, my mother gave them thousands and thousands of dollars to change my body. Because even I had a good excuse, right? I weighed 250 pounds by the time I was 16. So yeah, I had a real problem. But joke's on me, because when I weighed 120 pounds, I was still constantly checking myself and then fearful of gaining weight again. And even to this day, thank God it's gotten much, much better. But now I weigh around 160, 165 pounds, which is a healthy, good weight. I have a really nice shape. I have hanging skin, but that's normal after losing, 100 pounds and having 3 babies and whatever. But in my head, I was just sharing this with my sponsor the other day. As some of you know, I had a relapse about 5 years ago, gained about 30 pounds, and now I'm basically almost back to where I was before the relapse. But now that I'm in weight loss mode, I'm going, maybe I should keep going. Like, let's see how thin I can get. Not obviously, I don't want to get back to where I wasn't getting my period or anything, but let's see how low we can go, because my head will do that. And it's that same, and I realized as I looked into it, what am I really looking for? Well, let's dig down on that, right? My body image is tied into my identity and worthiness, because that's what I've been taught, right? My worthiness and my value as a woman comes from my desirability. If men want to have sex with me, I count. If men don't want to have sex with me, I'm invisible. So now in my 40s, I don't really ascribe to that. Quite frankly, I don't really care what most men think. Although if I catch one looking at me, I get a little like, yeah, no, she still got it. But anyway, I don't even know what I was saying. Okay, fine. So if I want to be thin, whatever thin means to me, right? Because thin could mean I could be in a hospital with the respirator on, But what does that mean? That means that I'm desirable. Okay, if I'm desirable, then what? Then I count. Then I belong. Then I'm part of. Okay, so if I'm part of, then what? Well, then I won't feel lonely. Okay. Basically, what I'm afraid of is being abandoned and alone. And I'm afraid of being in pain, emotional pain from that, rejection and aloneness. Okay, well, what if I am alone? Well, what if the pain is so terrible that I die? What if I can't handle it and I pick up and I eat? So really, I'm just afraid of aloneness and pain and death. Well, guess what? Losing 20 pounds isn't going to make a difference one way or the other, because what I'm trying to do is treat a fear with my body. Just like I ate compulsively, I treated my fear and my resentment with food. So now it's, okay, I need to make myself attain this perfect shape so that I'm impervious to any pain. Nothing bad will happen to me if I look good. To my credit, America tells you that. When I was 22 and really, really thin, the message I got was, well, if you're thin and pretty, you can behave however you want. So I did, and was running myself into the ground. So ultimately, the bottom line is I am powerless over my body image the same way I'm powerless over food. Because I will never be thin enough. I will never be perfect enough. I will never look exactly the way I think I should. Even when I weighed 120 pounds or 125 pounds, whatever, I was, checking on the extra skin or the rolls or just make sure that like this bone is sticking out enough, like just that obsession that's really just me trying to protect myself from pain. But I'll tell you something, when I was thin, I had more pain in my life than I ever did when I was fat, which kind of proves my theory that keeping myself fat protected me from pain. But what I was really doing was excusing myself from life. I was just having this conversation with my son the other day. My son is 16 and he is on the autism spectrum and he is gay and he is a compulsive eater and he's very overweight. And he and I and my other son were having a conversation the other night about how when we moved to Israel, it was hard for everybody. And my second son, who's 15, was like, yeah, but I realized after a year that you can either feel bad and be, just be mad about the fact that you're here, or you can say, okay, I'm going to learn and be part of it and figure it out. And that's what my 15-year-old did. He's Israeli now. He's great. My older son stays in his room. That's what he does. He stays in his room. He has not learned Hebrew. He's on his computer all day. And he has a couple friends. He goes out for, once in a while, but mostly he's excused himself from life because it's big and scary. And I did the same thing for a really long time. So for him, food is giving him the ease and comfort. The body's giving him the ease and comfort. He's protecting himself from people. And he knows that I know we've talked about it. I can't stop him, but I understand because there is something to be said for protecting yourself that way. Ultimately, my experience was the pain of being in that isolation had to get so much that I was willing to try something different, even if I knew it risked life happening to me. And life did happen to me after that. I dealt with a lot of stuff, between moving and my mother dying. I lost jobs, tumultuous, a lot of self-created chaos in the beginning of my marriage, all kinds of stuff, financial problems, all different kinds I wasn't protected anymore. And I was using my body earlier to protect myself in one way, and then now using it again in a different way. Ultimately, my body image has to be set right as well. My body is just a vessel for my soul. It is the house in which my soul functions on this earth. My soul is so holy and powerful that it has to be contained in something, or else the world just can't handle how fabulous it is. It's the same with you guys. You all have fabulous souls. So my body is not a thing to be manipulated to protect me. It is a thing that already protects me and deserves to be treated with care. Through healthy food, through movement, through, long walks and coffee dates and good sex and talks with friends and life. I'll give you an example. When I was 12, I went to this, a little older, I went to this summer program at Wellesley College in Boston where you could go and take like fake college courses for kids in middle school. So I signed up for this African dance class. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I go to this African dance class and all of a sudden they started, and I was like, 13, 14, right? They start having you do this thing with your hips that is like overtly fertile sexual. And I was like, nope. First of all, I was embarrassed about my body, like, oh, the fat girl can't be doing that, but also just so afraid of my own sexuality that I didn't go to that class again. I went to a different class. I couldn't even do it. This past week, my friend was teaching at an African dance festival. And as soon as I saw that she was doing it, I'm like, I'm coming. I have to come. Okay. So I came to this festival. Guys, I have not had this much fun in so long. So long. I danced my brains out, and I even made a video of myself dancing and posted it on the internet. Okay. I posted it on Instagram. And yeah, I looked at my body for a second. I was like, she looks good. Let's go, girl, get it. And that was it. Because you know why? I was living. And it's That's what it is. That's what this is. It's bringing us back to life. I have never, not never, but I'd say never in my lifetime until the last year, 2 years, really. Like maybe it's entering my 40s, maybe it's spiritual, I don't know, but like feeling so free and at home in my body and like in touch with my sexuality and just like happy to go out there and do my thing and just like not giving a shit what people think, because it's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with me. So that for me is what body image is about today. Looking at my body as a holy vessel and treating it with the respect it deserves and not trying to manipulate or hurt it in any way. I did a lot of damage to my body. It's unbelievable what our bodies will withstand, and they still continue to show up for us. I have to have gratitude to my body every single day that it didn't crap out after gaining 100 pounds, losing 100 pounds, gaining 30 pounds, losing 30 pounds, bulimia, drugs, like, and my body's like, I got you, girl. We're going to go do an African dance now, and it's going to be a freaking blast, Like, how can I not have gratitude for that? So to me, that's what body image is about. In terms of Lydia, the clock is paused. Do you know where we are in terms of time? Or you just want me to talk forever, huh?
It's paused on my square, but it's still going on the top. I have no idea why. It says
Okay.
1904 on the top.
So now let's talk about a little more about sexuality, right? So, like I said before, because I had so much shame around my body, I had so much shame around sexuality, which also to my credit, women are taught to be ashamed of their sexuality. We are taught to be vessels of pleasure for men. Um, like it's sort of this virgin whore dynamic where like you can either be prim and proper or you're a slut. It can't be in the middle. Um, and so I personally wanted to be thought of as a slut. Like when I heard about people, fooling around or people thought I fooled around with someone, I did not tell them otherwise. I wanted people to think I was a slut because if I was a slut, and by the way, I use that word with respect. Okay. I know there's this whole thing about slut shaming. Um, but I'm just like, you want to be a slut? You go be a slut. Okay. You do it. Go enjoy. Anyway, my point is, if I was a slut, if people thought I was a slut, then I was desirable. People wanted me, hence my value. Um, I was ashamed that I was still a virgin at 17, God forbid. Because I had friends who had already lost their virginity and I had to get rid of it because, oh my God, like if I was still a virgin, then that meant nobody wanted me. I literally invited, I'll tell you what happened. I called my friend, who was a guy, and I said, come take me to my prom and I'll have sex with you. And he was like, okay. I mean, he was gonna say no. So that's what, like, it wasn't even a thought in my mind that I would want to wait for someone who would want to share that special experience with me. Number one, because I genuinely believe that no one would ever want me. Really. Like they might want to use me, and that was okay, but they would never want me. Because first of all, I looked the way I looked, but deep down, if you really knew me, you'd know how dark and horrible and unlovable I was. So no one was ever really going to love me, so I might as well get it where I could get it. And that was really what led my sexuality for years. Even after I got into a much smaller and societally more acceptable, attractive body, I genuinely did not believe that somebody would really want me. And so I went after people who weren't available just to prove to myself that no one could ever really want me. Either because they were in a relationship or they were emotionally unavailable. And I insisted on knocking on doors that were locked to me. But that also, I realized in retrospect, was a way of protecting myself. Because if I found someone who actually wanted to be with me, then I would have to risk intimacy and them actually knowing me and knowing all the parts of me. It finally got to a point where after I was test driving my new body. I was probably thin for like a couple of years at that point. I met a guy and went out with him. And I don't know what it is about myself or maybe young women in general in my generation, but like we were encouraged, like to be sexually active gave you points as a person. Like there, it was not cool to like wait. You should be experienced. I think it was like the post-feminist generation where like you're supposed to go out and live and enjoy just like a man does. But I realized very quickly that I'm not built that way. And I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally. And by the way, I know there are men also who are given a lot of messaging about what a man should be. It's not easy to be a man either, you know? Now they have their own body standards that are horrible and unattainable. I look at my son who's 15 and gorgeous, and he's looking at his six pack, and my 11-year-old's like, yeah, I want a six pack too. And I was just like, no one cares if you're good looking if you're an asshole. So just letting you know. So I I personally could not sleep around without it hurting me, without feeling desolate and sad afterwards. There are people for whom that works 100% and it brings them joy. And I love that for them. Like I said, I am not an arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. If you want to go and meet random strangers and have sex with them and that brings you happiness, do it. Enjoy. I read this great book once. I highly recommend it. It's not OA approved literature. It's a novel that I read once called City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Highly recommend. And there's a character in the book who she knew she didn't want to be married and she didn't want to be tied down to anyone. She wanted her own life. And so she would just like meet people and have, you know, short affairs with them. And that worked for her. And I was like, I respect that. It's not how I'm built, but she knew herself and that's what she wanted. I think that's great. I knew myself more and more that I really wanted to have a sexual relationship within the bounds of something committed. I did, for me, it didn't have to be marriage, just a committed relationship. For some people, it's marriage, and that's also fine, you know? Too much pepper, too much salt, whatever. You want to sleep around, sleep around. Do you want to only save yourself for that one man or that one woman and sleep with them for the rest of your life? Do that. Whatever's the thing that brings you safety and joy. So for me, I realized that. So I was telling the story. I met this guy and I went out with him like once or twice, maybe three times. And then I slept with him. I didn't even think twice, like, do I want to sleep with this person? It was just like, no, we're dating and I'm supposed to sleep with him now and I want to sleep with him. He's hot. And so I slept with him and afterward, I'm in bed with this person afterward and I just start crying. Probably scared the crap out of him. like I just started crying and I didn't understand. I thought that it was this like, wow, I'm this new sexual awakened woman. But really, it was like, God, I'm so lonely now. This doesn't, like, I gave something of myself away and I'm mourning that because it wasn't something shared. Maybe even if I barely knew this person, but he was like, listen, I really like you. We don't know each other, but let's try to make something together and we'll see where it goes. Maybe that would have been better for me, but I was still using it as a tool to get something. And that hurt me. And it hurt him also because I was just using him the same way, although he maybe not wasn't using me. I have no idea. The point was I was using them. That was the last time I had sex until I met my husband. Because not for lack of desire, but because I burned myself badly enough that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to throw myself away like that. And like I said, I'm not saying that with judgment. If people sleep with someone after one date and don't feel any and just are joyful in that, enjoy, please. But for me, I needed to feel an emotional connection, or else it felt like I was breaking off a piece of my own soul and handing it to someone who could not handle it with care. And so when I met my husband, I didn't sleep with him until after I knew that we were in something committed and even that he wanted to marry me, which kind of happened by accident. But but yeah, I just knew I can't sleep with anyone anymore unless I know it's that I'm safe and they're safe too, that we're sharing something together. And that has been the only sexual relationship I have been in since then. And it's, thank God, it's been 18 years. But I've also had a lot of discovering to do with my sexuality within my marriage, understanding that certain things are okay with me and certain things don't feel so comfortable for me. And sexuality is a spectrum, and thinking something doesn't mean it's bad, and wanting something doesn't mean it's bad, and trying something doesn't mean our marriage is in trouble. Like, if there's communication and we're working together as a couple, then it's okay. Ultimately, just like I said before, sex is an expression of connection. Food is an expression of connection. 10 minutes, thank you. So in Judaism, they talk about how, like, when you eat, you're physically connecting your soul to your body, right? If you don't eat, your soul leaves your body. That's how it works, right? Like, you die. So when you're eating, you're making that connection between soul and body. So sex is the same thing, right? Like, we're, instead of making connection between soul and body, you're using bodies to connect souls. And that's really beautiful. When I heard that interpretation, I was like, yeah, sex is a spiritual act. And maybe for me, that's why it was so painful when I used it that way, because I wasn't giving it the respect and sacredness it deserved. And to be in situations where I'm sharing that with someone who I don't care about is very lonely, because I'm trying to make a connection and it's not happening. So that's a good thing. That's good information for me to have, because ultimately I'm here for the spiritual experience and to be a soul-led person, not an instinct or defect-led person, right? So I have to follow my soul's messages when it comes to this stuff. And for me, sexuality is a gift to be used rightly with someone who honors and respects it as much as I do. Whatever that looks like. For me, it's within the confines of marriage. If God forbid something happened to my husband, I don't know if I would get married again, but I definitely, if I had another sexual relationship, it would still be in the confines of a mutually agreed upon connection and not just sleeping around. I'm thinking of anything else I want to say. Oh, okay. So the Satan sounds ideal for our future sex life, right? We subjected to each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? So ultimately, I can know if I'm on the right track with sexuality based on my motives. Am I trying to get something out of this besides connection? Now, there are times, now I'm just going to be real here, because if there are women here who've been married a long time, you know what I'm talking about. Where, like, my husband's like, hey, you wanna? And I'm like, not really, but I'll do you a solid. You know what I mean? Like, I could go to bed, but sure, okay, I'll give you 10 minutes of my time. Is that selfish? No. Like, it's just real. It's not going to be every time like you read in the romance novels where you want to rip each other's clothes off. I used to think that that's what it was supposed to be like because I grew up on romance novels. But now it's just like, no, sometimes it's doing someone a solid. Like, that's not selfish. Sometimes it's okay to do a little service with a smile. Like, it shouldn't always be that. And if I don't want to, that can also be like, no, I'm good. I'm going to bed. Thank you, though. Thanks for stopping by. But, like, it's okay to do that as well. The bottom line is, what is my motives? If I want to do something for my husband to make him happy, cool. And if I don't want to, that's also okay. There were times where I felt guilty about saying no. Like, in the beginning of my marriage, I felt guilty about saying no. Not because I believe that women have to do their wifely duty, but just because I felt bad, because I knew he was, wanted to. And so I'd do it. And then in the middle, I'd like get angry or like start a fight just to like stop it because I didn't really want to do it. When really I could have avoided all that and just been like, you know what, honey, we talk tomorrow. I think tonight I'm just too tired. I didn't know how to do that. But part of honoring my own sexuality is honoring my boundaries around sexuality. Um, I have, and I actually just did a huge fear inventory. And one of my fears in that inventory was about fear of my own response and addiction to male attention. And like fear that if somebody gives me attention, I won't be able to control myself and I'll just end up sleeping with them. which is like, now that I hear myself say it, I'm like, that's actually ridiculous. Because half the time I don't even want to like, I'm too tired to sleep with my own husband. I don't know who I'm sleeping with anyway. But hold on, sorry. But that instinct is there. And so again, bringing it back into balance and knowing, okay, what am I looking for? What am I getting from male attention? A little ego hit. Why does my ego hit? Because I want to feel attractive. Because if I'm attractive, then and I just have to follow the crumbs down the path, right? Which basically means I want to feel worthy and seen. Well, guess what? There are a lot of ways to feel worthy and seen. That's not sleeping with some random dude who said hi to me in a parking lot. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways to do that. um, so I had an experience actually a couple of weeks ago where I went to this work networking thing, and there was a gentleman there who I kept noticing was looking at me. So it might just be because I have a sparkling personality. It also might be because he was attracted to me. And it might just be because he has, weird social cues. I have no idea. But on the way out, he followed me and was like, hey, I wanted to talk to you. Can we meet about a work thing? And at first, so first of all, I said, I can meet you on Zoom. Like, I'm not going to go out and meet with you one on one because I don't know how I feel about the vibe here. But also, he told me quickly afterward that like, yeah, I'm interested in doing this project, but I don't have a budget. And so I made the appointment with him, and then I thought about it later. I talked to my husband about it, and he made a good point. He's like, if he doesn't have a budget, you don't have to meet with him. Like, if you are meeting with clients, they're coming to you because they have a budget and they're ready to pay you. If he's not ready to pay you, he's just meeting with you to talk to you. And I was like, you're right. And I don't really want to meet with this person. So I canceled the meeting. Now, who's to say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I have no idea who this person is. I don't even feel comfortable around this person, but oh, he wants to meet with me. Okay. And then like start a flirtation with him to lead him on so that I feel good. Today I don't have to do that because he's a person also, right? He's also a person who deserves respect. Why am I wasting his time? Why am I using him to feel good? I don't need to. So ultimately it comes down to my motives. When it comes to my body, my motive, thank you, the motive I choose is gratitude, appreciation, and respect. When it comes to sexuality, gratitude, appreciation, and respect for myself and the partner that I choose within the construct that I choose that feels safe and joyful and connective for me. At the end of the day, that's the best I can do as long as I'm honest about it. So I think I'm going to stop there. Thanks, guys.